I stared at the cream-colored envelope in my hands, my heart racing with anticipation. Finally, my sister Madison's wedding invitation had arrived, but when I tore it open, my world shattered. Instead of elegant script announcing her ceremony, I found a typed letter explaining why I wasn't invited. Madison called me just a marine geek who would embarrass her sophisticated guests with my awkward science talk. My boyfriend Jake found me crying on our couch, clutching the cruel words that branded me unworthy of my own sister's special day. The following Thursday evening, I drove to my parents' house in Westchester County, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The colonial-style home where I grew up looked exactly the same with its perfectly manicured lawn and Dorothy's prize-winning rose garden. But everything felt different now. I walked through the familiar front door past the family photos lining the hallway where Madison's achievements dominated every surface. My parents sat at their mahogany dining table, clearly expecting this confrontation. Dorothy nervously adjusted her pearl necklace, while Frank avoided eye contact, fidgeting with his reading glasses. The smell of pot roast filled the air, the same meal Dorothy always prepared when she anticipated difficult conversations. "We need to talk about Madison's wedding." I began placing the letter on the table between us. Dorothy's face flushed pink. "Sweetheart, we hoped you'd understand without making this awkward." Awkward. I couldn't hide my disbelief. My own sister doesn't want me at her wedding, and I'm the one making things awkward. Frank cleared his throat, finally looking at me with tired brown eyes. "Celia, you know how you get at social gatherings. Remember Cousin Patricia's baby shower when you spent 2 hours explaining whale migration patterns to everyone? People didn't know how to respond." The memory stung because it was true, but his words felt like a slap. I was trying to make conversation. I thought people would find it interesting. Madison's fiancé Trevor comes from a very established family, Dorothy explained, wringing her hands. The Worthington name carries significant weight in their social circles. Everything needs to be perfect for their reputation. "So I'm not perfect enough for my own family?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Frank shifted uncomfortably. "It's not about perfection, honey. It's about appropriateness. Madison worked hard to build relationships in Trevor's world. She can't risk anything going wrong." "What about the engagement party last month that I mysteriously didn't hear about until after it happened?" I asked, remembering the photos I'd seen on Dorothy's social media. My parents exchanged guilty glances. Dorothy spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. "That was a small, intimate gathering. Very last minute. 43 people according to your Facebook photos, including second cousins I haven't seen in years." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Frank finally spoke, his words measured and careful. "Perhaps you could watch the live stream from home." Madison mentioned they're broadcasting the ceremony for distant relatives. The suggestion felt like another knife twist. My own family was relegating me to the category of distant relatives, people too unimportant to warrant an actual invitation. "I can't believe what I'm hearing," I said, my voice shaking. "You're both okay with Madison treating me like this?" Dorothy reached across the table, her manicured fingers attempting to grasp mine. "We're not okay with it, but we understand her position. This marriage is important for her career prospects, too. Trevor's family has connections in the marketing world that could open doors. And what about my career? What about what matters to me?" Frank's expression hardened slightly. "Celia, be realistic. Your research projects are admirable, but they don't exactly translate to practical success. Madison has built something tangible, something that provides security." The words cut deeper than I expected. Here was my father essentially telling me that my life's passion meant nothing to him. that years of education, research, and dedication were somehow less valuable than Madison's corporate achievements. "I need you both to understand something," I said, standing up from the table. "This isn't just about one wedding. This is about how you've always treated us differently. Madison gets support, encouragement, and celebration. I get tolerance at best." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "That's not true. We love you both equally." "Then why have you been secretly contributing to Madison's wedding fund while refusing to help with my research expeditions?" The accusation spilled out before I could stop it. The color drained from both their faces. Frank's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. "How did you know about that?" "Madison bragged about your generous contributions during our last phone call. She assumed you were helping both of us equally." The revelation hung heavy in the room. There was no denying it now, no way to pretend their favoritism didn't exist. Dorothy started crying softly, her mascara creating dark streaks down her cheeks. "We thought Madison needed more help getting established," Frank said weakly. "Your career path is so unconventional." "Unconventional, but not worth supporting, apparently." I gathered my purse and car keys, needing to escape before their rejection could wound me any deeper. At the front door, I turned back to see them sitting in stunned silence at their perfect dining table in their perfect house. "I hope Madison's wedding is everything you all want it to be," I said, "since you've made it clear that I'm not part of this family's important moments anymore." The drive home blurred past through tears I couldn't hold back any longer. Monday morning brought the familiar comfort of my university laboratory, where saltwater aquariums hummed quietly and research equipment gleamed under fluorescent lights. I threw myself into work analyzing coral samples from my recent diving expedition to the Florida Keys. The methodical nature of scientific research provided a welcome distraction from the emotional chaos of my weekend. Around 11 o'clock, Dr. Harrison's assistant knocked on my lab door. "Celia, Dr. Harrison needs to see you in his office immediately." My stomach dropped. Emergency meetings with the department head usually meant budget cuts or canceled projects. I walked across campus to the administration building, my mind racing through possible explanations for the urgent summons. Dr. Harrison's corner office overlooked the quad where students hurried between classes. His desk was covered with official-looking documents, and his usually serious expression seemed even more intense than usual. "Sit down, Celia," he said, gesturing to the leather chair across from his desk. "I have some rather extraordinary news." He handed me a thick envelope bearing the National Science Foundation seal. My hands trembled as I opened it and began reading the official letterhead. "Your coral reef restoration proposal has been approved for funding," Dr. Harrison announced, his voice carrying a mix of excitement and disbelief. $1.5 million over 3 years. It's the largest grant ever awarded to a researcher your age in our department's history. The words seemed impossible. I'd submitted the proposal 6 months ago, hoping for maybe $100,000 to support basic research. This was beyond my wildest dreams. The review committee was unanimous in their enthusiasm, Dr. Harrison continued. They called your approach revolutionary. You'll be working with teams from 5 different countries, and National Geographic wants to document the entire project. I stared at the approval letter, reading it again to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My research into coral reef restoration using innovative symbiotic algae cultivation would now become reality on a scale I'd never imagined possible. "There's more," Dr. Harrison said, barely containing his excitement. "The university is promoting you to Senior Research Associate, and the National Science Foundation wants you to present your findings at next year's International Marine Biology Conference in Monaco." The irony wasn't lost on me. While my family dismissed my career as playing with fish, the scientific community was recognizing me as a leader in one of the most critical environmental challenges of our time. "When do I start?" I asked, finally finding my voice. Immediately. You'll need to assemble your research team within the next month. The first phase of funding releases next week. I walked back to my lab in a daze, the approval letter clutched in my hands like a precious artifact. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "How's your day going?" "Still thinking about our weekend." He was referring to our diving trip to the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Station, where we'd spent 2 days photographing sea otters for his latest conservation photography project. Jake's work documenting marine life had been gaining recognition in environmental circles, and several magazines were featuring his images in upcoming articles. Instead of texting back, I called him directly. "Jake, can you meet me at the lab? I have incredible news." 20 minutes later, he burst through the lab door with his characteristic enthusiasm. Jake's passion for ocean conservation matched my own, and his ability to capture the beauty of marine ecosystems through photography complemented my scientific research perfectly. "What's the incredible news?" he asked, his dark eyes sparkling with curiosity. I handed him the NSF letter without saying a word. I watched his expression change from confusion to amazement as he read the details. "Celia, this is phenomenal." He swept me up in a spinning hug that knocked over a stack of research journals. "You're going to change how the world thinks about coral restoration." As he set me down, his expression grew serious. "Have you told your family yet?" The question brought me crashing back to reality. My family, who had just excluded me from Madison's wedding because they were embarrassed by my career. My family, who saw my life's work as an awkward hobby rather than a meaningful contribution to science. "Not yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to see how far their cruelty will go before I reveal this." Jake studied my face carefully. "That's not like you to withhold good news." "It's not like them to treat me like an embarrassment either." We spent the afternoon discussing the implications of the grant. I would need to recruit postdoctoral researchers, coordinate with international partners, and plan extensive field research expeditions. The project would require sophisticated equipment boat charters and laboratory facilities around the world. That evening, Jake suggested we celebrate with dinner at our favorite seafood restaurant overlooking the harbor. The setting sun painted the water in shades of orange and pink, and sailboats bobbed gently at their moorings. Halfway through dinner, Jake reached across the table and took my hand. "Celia, there's something I want to ask you." He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, and my breath caught in my throat. The ring inside featured a stunning sapphire surrounded by small diamonds chosen to match the color of deep ocean water. "I love your passion for protecting the oceans, your brilliant mind, and your incredible heart," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Will you marry me?" Through tears of joy, I said yes. As he slipped the ring onto my finger, an idea began forming in my mind. A way to respond to my family's rejection that would be far more powerful than any angry confrontation. "Jake," I said, admiring the way the sapphire caught the light, "what would you say to a wedding on the water?" The next few days brought a flurry of activity as word of my engagement spread among our friends and colleagues. Everyone was excited about our planned ocean-themed ceremony, and several people offered to help with arrangements. But my happiness was tainted by Madison's increasingly aggressive behavior. She called Tuesday evening, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I heard through the grapevine that you got engaged," she said. "How exciting that someone finally wanted to marry the family oddball." The insult was delivered with such casual cruelty that it took my breath away. "Congratulations to you too, Madison." "I hope you're not planning anything elaborate," she continued. "Some people aren't cut out for big celebrations. Better to keep things small and simple when you don't really have the budget or social connections to pull off something impressive." I bit my tongue, refusing to take the bait. Madison had no idea about my grant money or the connections I'd built in the marine research community. Actually, I wanted to apologize for my behavior last weekend. She said, though, her tone suggested anything but remorse. I know you're probably heard about the wedding situation, but I'm sure you understand why it's better this way. Trevor's family has very specific expectations about guest appropriateness. Guest appropriateness? I repeated. You know what I mean. People who can hold sophisticated conversations, who understand social etiquette. It's nothing personal, Celia. It's just that your interests are so niche and unusual that they make others uncomfortable. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes with Madison alternately apologizing and insulting me. By the time I hung up, I was more determined than ever to show my family exactly what they were missing. Wednesday brought another revelation that shattered what remained of my illusions about Madison's character. My friend Sarah from graduate school called with disturbing news. Celia, I need to tell you something uncomfortable, she began. I was at a networking event last weekend and your sister was there. She didn't know I knew you. My stomach clenched with anticipation. She was introducing herself to people as Dorothy and Frank's daughter, but when someone asked about siblings, she said she was essentially an only child. She mentioned having a sister who was socially challenged and worked with fish, but said they weren't close because you were too awkward for normal family interactions. The words hit like physical blows. Madison hadn't just excluded me from her wedding. She had been actively erasing me from her social narrative for who knew how long. There's more, Sarah continued reluctantly. When someone mentioned marine biology as an interesting field, Madison laughed and said her sister played with fish as a hobby, but had never accomplished anything significant. She made it sound like you were unemployed and living in a fantasy world. I thanked Sarah for her honesty and hung up feeling nauseated. My own sister had been systematically destroying my reputation among people who might have been professional connections. How many opportunities had I lost because of her calculated sabotage? That evening, I sat in my apartment planning my response. Madison had drawn clear battle lines, and my family had chosen their side. Now it was time for them to discover exactly what they had rejected. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of secret wedding planning that felt both exhilarating and surreal. While Madison bragged about her upcoming ceremony to anyone who would listen, I quietly assembled what would become the most talked about wedding of the year. My first stop was Harbor Point Marina, where luxury yacht charters operated from a gleaming fleet of vessels. The sales manager, Patricia Henley, showed me through several options before we settled on the Oceanic Dreams, a 150-foot yacht with panoramic windows, multiple decks, and space for up to 200 guests. We typically book weddings 6 months in advance, Patricia explained as we toured the elegant main salon. But we had a last-minute cancellation for the date you requested. The irony was perfect. Madison's wedding was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at the historic Riverside Country Club. My ceremony would take place that same evening aboard a yacht sailing into the sunset, creating a stunning contrast between her traditional venue and my ocean celebration. I'll need full catering, a photography crew, and coordination with some special guests who'll be joining us by helicopter, I told Patricia. Her eyes widened slightly, but she maintained professional composure. Helicopter arrival. How exciting. We've hosted several celebrity events, so our staff is experienced with unique requirements. The guest list for my wedding was deliberately small, but incredibly influential. Dr. Harrison would officiate the ceremony, and I'd invited 25 of the most respected marine biologists in North America. Jake's photography colleagues from National Geographic would document everything, and the ceremony would be live-streamed through their official social media channels as part of the grant announcement celebration. My wedding dress came from an eco-friendly designer who specialized in sustainable fashion. The flowing silk gown incorporated subtle wave patterns in the embroidery, and the designer created matching accessories using recycled ocean glass. Instead of a traditional veil, I chose a crown of pearls and seashells that complemented the sapphire engagement ring perfectly. Jake's enthusiasm for the plan matched my own. He coordinated with underwater photographers to capture images of dolphins and whales that frequently migrated through our chosen sailing route. The ceremony would take place on the yacht's bow as we moved through waters known for spectacular marine life sightings. Meanwhile, Madison's behavior became increasingly unbearable. She called almost daily to share updates about her wedding preparations, each conversation designed to emphasize the superiority of her choices. "My dress cost $12,000, she announced during one particularly grating phone call. The designer is the same one who created gowns for several political wives. Trevor's mother insisted on quality befitting the Worthington family standards." "That sounds lovely," I replied, not mentioning that my entire wedding, including the yacht charter, would cost less than her dress. "The flowers alone are costing $8,000, she continued. "We're flying in orchids from Hawaii and roses from Ecuador. The florist said it's one of the most elaborate arrangements she's ever created." Madison seemed to interpret my calm responses as defeat rather than disinterest. "I know this must be difficult for you, Celia, seeing what a real wedding looks like. But maybe someday you'll find someone who can afford to give you something special too." The condescension was breathtaking, but I maintained my composure. "I'm very happy with my engagement, Madison." "Oh, I'm sure you are. Jake seems like a sweet guy, very down to earth. Perfect for someone who doesn't need anything too flashy or expensive." During another conversation, Madison revealed details that made my blood boil. "Trevor's grandmother is giving us her emerald necklace as a wedding gift. It's been in their family for 4 generations. She said she's never been more impressed with one of her grandson's choices." The implication was clear: I would never be worthy of such family treasures or acceptance. Dorothy called separately to check on my emotional state. "Sweetheart, I know this situation with Madison's wedding is difficult, but I hope you understand that family relationships require compromise." "Compromise?" I asked. "What exactly am I supposed to be compromising?" "Your expectations about always being included in everything. Madison is starting a new chapter of her life with different social requirements. Perhaps you could see this as an opportunity to focus on your own relationship with Jake." The conversation revealed how completely my parents had bought into Madison's narrative. They genuinely believed I should be grateful for the lesson in knowing my place. Frank called later that week with what he apparently considered a peace offering. "Celia, your mother and I have been thinking. Maybe we could host a small family dinner after Madison's wedding to celebrate your engagement. Nothing fancy, just immediate family. A consolation prize dinner scheduled for after the main event." The suggestion was so insulting that I almost laughed. "That's very thoughtful, Dad, but Jake and I are actually planning our own celebration for that weekend." "Oh, what kind of celebration?" "You'll see," I said, enjoying the mystery. As Madison's wedding date approached, her anxiety increased dramatically. She obsessed over every detail, calling vendors multiple times daily and changing arrangements at the last minute. The pressure seemed to be affecting her relationship with Trevor, whose family grew increasingly concerned about Madison's controlling behavior. "Trevor's mother thinks I'm being too demanding," Madison confided during one of our conversations. "She suggested I delegate more responsibilities to the wedding planner, but I can't risk anything going wrong. This wedding has to be perfect." The irony was delicious. Madison was so focused on impressing Trevor's family that she was actually alienating them with her bridezilla behavior. 10 days before the wedding, I received the final piece of information that would make my revenge complete. My Aunt Sarah, Dorothy's sister, called with disturbing news about Madison's manipulation tactics. "Celia, honey, I need to tell you something that's been bothering me for months," she began. "Madison has been systematically uninviting extended family members from gatherings, telling everyone that you requested smaller, more intimate celebrations because large groups make you anxious." The revelation was stunning. Madison hadn't just excluded me. She had been using my supposed social anxiety as an excuse to control guest lists and manipulate family relationships. She told Cousin David that you specifically asked not to be invited to his graduation party because you felt uncomfortable around his college friends. She told your Uncle Robert that you preferred not to attend his retirement celebration because corporate events trigger your nervousness. Years of missed family connections suddenly made sense. Madison had been isolating me, systematically creating a narrative of my social inadequacy that justified my exclusion from important events. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because David mentioned it to me last weekend, and I realized Madison has been lying to all of us. You've never shown signs of social anxiety. In fact, you've always been confident and articulate about your work when given the chance." That evening, I called David and Robert directly. Both conversations confirmed Sarah's account and revealed the extent of Madison's deception. My cousin David was particularly upset. "Celia, I wanted to invite you to my graduation, but Madison insisted you'd be uncomfortable. I felt terrible about it, but I didn't want to put you in an awkward position." The pattern was clear and devastating. Madison had spent years carefully managing my social connections to maintain her position as the successful sister while portraying me as a social liability. As I hung up from the last conversation, my resolve crystallized completely. Madison had declared war on my relationships and reputation. Now she would discover exactly what kind of opponent she had chosen. Saturday morning arrived with perfect October weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, and the kind of golden sunlight that photographers dream about. I woke up in the bridal suite at Harbor Point Marina, where I'd spent the night finalizing last-minute details for my evening ceremony. Jake was getting ready at our apartment while I enjoyed the luxury of professional hair and makeup artists who specialized in waterfront weddings. The team created an elegant updo that would withstand ocean breezes, and my makeup emphasized natural beauty that would photograph beautifully against the water. Around 10 o'clock, I slipped into a simple blue dress, not my wedding gown, which was safely hanging in the yacht's bridal suite, and drove to the Riverside Country Club, where Madison's wedding preparations were in full swing. The country club buzzed with activity as vendors delivered flowers, caterers set up elaborate serving stations, and the wedding party rushed through final preparations. I found my family gathered in the main lobby, all dressed in their finest attire for Madison's special day. Dorothy wore a lavender mother-of-the-bride dress that probably cost more than most people's car payments, while Frank sported a custom-tailored navy suit. They were greeting early arriving guests and basking in the attention that came with hosting such an expensive celebration. My cousin David spotted me first, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "Celia, what a wonderful surprise. I didn't expect to see you here today." His enthusiastic greeting caught Dorothy's attention, and she hurried over with obvious anxiety. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Madison's already getting dressed, and the ceremony starts in 3 hours. "I wanted to wish everyone well," I said calmly. "Besides, I needed to let you know that I won't be staying for the reception." Frank approached, adjusting his tie nervously. "Not staying, but the reception is the most important part. That's where all the real celebrating happens." "I have my own celebration to attend this evening," I announced loud enough for several nearby family members to hear. My Aunt Sarah moved closer, her curiosity clearly piqued. "Your own celebration." "What kind of celebration?" "My wedding." The words dropped like a bomb into the cheerful conversation. David's mouth fell open, Dorothy's face went pale, and Frank actually stumbled backward slightly. "Your wedding?" Dorothy whispered, as if saying it too loudly might make it more real. "Today, but that's impossible." "Why would it be impossible? People get married every day." News of my announcement spread through the lobby like wildfire. Extended family members who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly gathered around, asking questions and expressing excitement about the unexpected development. Uncle Robert clapped me on the shoulder enthusiastically. "Congratulations, kiddo. Where's the ceremony taking place?" "On a yacht in the harbor. We're sailing at sunset with about 50 guests." 50 guests. Dorothy's voice rose to an almost hysterical pitch. "You planned a 50-person wedding without telling your own parents?" "I planned a wedding without telling the people who made it clear I wasn't welcome at family celebrations," I corrected gently. The distinction wasn't lost on anyone within hearing distance. Several family members exchanged uncomfortable glances, clearly recognizing the implication of my words. Frank pulled me aside, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Celia, this is completely unacceptable. You cannot get married today. It will completely overshadow Madison's wedding." "I wasn't aware that Madison had exclusive rights to October 21st. "Don't be smart with me, young lady. This is deliberate sabotage, and you know it." Before I could respond, Madison appeared in the lobby wearing her elaborate bridal robe, her hair in curlers, and her face covered with a green spa mask. She looked like she'd rushed down from the bridal suite the moment she heard the commotion. "What's all this noise about?" she demanded, then spotted me in the center of the crowd. "Celia, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." "I came to tell everyone about my wedding tonight," I said pleasantly. Madison's green face mask cracked slightly as her expression shifted to pure rage. "Your what?" "My wedding. Jake and I are getting married this evening aboard a yacht. It's going to be beautiful. Ceremony at sunset, reception under the stars, dolphins swimming alongside the boat." The romantic details seemed to inflame Madison even more. "You cannot be serious right now. This is my wedding day. Mine. You cannot steal my thunder with some ridiculous stunt." "It's not a stunt, Madison. It's my actual wedding to the man I love." Dorothy grabbed my arm tightly enough to leave bruises. "Absolutely not. I forbid this. You will cancel whatever arrangements you've made immediately." "You forbid it." I laughed genuinely, which seemed to upset everyone even more. "I'm 28 years old, Mom. You can't forbid me to get married." Frank stepped between Madison and me as if preventing a physical altercation. "This stops right now. Celia, you will call off this wedding or consider yourself no longer part of this family." The ultimatum hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Everyone in the lobby fell silent, waiting to see how I would respond to such a dramatic threat. "That's your choice to make, Dad, but my wedding proceeds as planned." Madison let out a sound that was part scream, part sob. "You are ruining everything. This is supposed to be my special day, and you're trying to destroy it out of pure jealousy and spite." "Actually, Madison, there's something you should know about my situation that might change your perspective." I pulled out my phone and opened the National Science Foundation website, where my grant announcement had been featured prominently for the past 2 weeks. I handed the phone to Dorothy, whose expression shifted from anger to confusion as she read. $1.5 million, she whispered. Frank leaned over her shoulder, his eyes scanning the official announcement. National Science Foundation, largest grant ever awarded, internationally recognized research. The color drained from Madison's face as the magnitude of my achievement became clear. She grabbed the phone from Dorothy's hands and read the announcement herself, her expression shifting from disbelief to something approaching panic. "You've known about this for weeks," Dorothy asked, her voice barely audible. I received the approval 3 weeks ago, the same week you told me I wasn't sophisticated enough for Madison's wedding. The timing was perfect, and everyone present understood the implication. While they were dismissing my career as embarrassing, the scientific community was recognizing me as a leader in my field. Madison's composure cracked completely. "This isn't fair. Why today? Why couldn't you just let me have my day without trying to show me up?" "Madison," said a new voice from across the lobby. "What's going on here?" Trevor approached with several of his groomsmen, all dressed in matching gray suits, and looking increasingly concerned about the drama unfolding in front of their wedding guests. "Nothing's going on," Madison said quickly, trying to hide her tear-streaked face. "Just a small family misunderstanding." But Cousin David stepped forward with a wide grin. "Trevor, you have to hear this. Celia just announced that she won $1.5 million research grant, and she's getting married tonight on a yacht." Trevor's eyebrows rose impressively. "A National Science Foundation grant. That's incredible, Celia. Congratulations on both the grant and the wedding." His gracious response seemed to embarrass Madison even more. Here was her own fiancé showing more enthusiasm for my achievements than she had ever displayed. "Trevor, we need to get back upstairs," Madison said desperately. "The photographer wants to take pre-ceremony shots." But Trevor was studying my phone, reading the grant announcement with genuine interest. "This coral restoration research sounds fascinating. I had no idea you were working on something this significant." "Few people in our family seem to find my work interesting," I said pointedly. The comment wasn't lost on anyone present. Uncle Robert looked embarrassed, David appeared thoughtful, and my parents seemed to be realizing how poorly they had handled the situation. Madison's last thread of composure snapped completely. "This is unbelievable. My own sister is trying to ruin my wedding day by announcing her fake engagement and made-up grant money." The accusation was so outrageous that several people gasped audibly. Trevor's expression shifted to concern, and his groomsmen exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Madison," Trevor said carefully, "why would you think Celia would lie about something like this?" "Because she's jealous. She's always been jealous of my success, and now she can't stand that I'm marrying into a respected family, while she's stuck with some nature photographer who'll never amount to anything." The cruel words hung in the air like poison. Jake had arrived during Madison's tirade, having come to pick me up for our own wedding preparations. He stood in the lobby doorway, having heard every word of Madison's character assassination. "Hello, Madison," he said quietly. "Congratulations on your wedding." His dignified response to her insults made Madison's behavior look even worse by comparison. Trevor's groomsmen were now openly staring at Madison with expressions of discomfort and disapproval. "Jake," Dorothy said, rushing to cover for Madison's outburst. "We didn't know you were coming." "I came to escort my fiancé to our wedding," he replied calmly. Frank made one last desperate attempt to control the situation. "Look, everyone just needs to calm down. We can work this out like civilized people. Celia, surely you can postpone your ceremony by a week or 2 out of respect for your sister." "Would Madison postpone her wedding if I had announced mine first?" I asked. The question hung unanswered because everyone knew the truth. Madison would never have changed her plans for anyone, least of all me. Uncle Robert broke the uncomfortable silence. "You know what, I think I'd rather attend a sunset yacht wedding than sit through another country club reception." His declaration prompted nervous laughter from several family members and a look of pure horror from Madison. "Robert," Dorothy protested, "you can't be serious." "Why not? It sounds romantic and unique. Celia's always been the most interesting person in this family, and we've been idiots for not appreciating that." David nodded enthusiastically. "He's right. Celia, what time does your ceremony start? Because I'm definitely coming." 7 o'clock, I said. "Boarding begins at 6:30 at Harbor Point Marina." "Perfect. That gives us time to see Madison get married and then head over to the harbor for the real celebration." Madison let out another anguished sob and ran back toward the bridal suite, her elaborate robe trailing behind her like a queen's cape. Trevor hesitated for a moment, clearly torn between following his bride and continuing the conversation with me. "Celia, I owe you an apology," he said finally. "I had no idea Madison had excluded you from our wedding or that she felt this way about your career. That's not the kind of family behavior the Worthingtons would ever support." His words carried serious implications. Madison's tantrum was being witnessed by the very people she'd been trying to impress, and their reaction was clearly not what she'd hoped for. As I prepared to leave with Jake, Dorothy made one final plea. "Sweetheart, please don't let this family disagreement spiral out of control. We can fix this." "Some things can't be fixed, Mom. Some things reveal who people really are." I walked out of the country club lobby with Jake's hand in mine, leaving behind the stunned silence of my family and the growing realization that Madison's perfect wedding day was rapidly becoming a disaster of her own making. The afternoon flew by in a blur of final preparations aboard the Oceanic Dreams. The yacht's crew had transformed the vessel into a floating paradise, with white silk draping along the railings, elegant floral arrangements featuring sea roses and coral-colored orchids and twinkling lights that would create magic after sunset. Dr. Harrison arrived early to discuss the ceremony details and review his officiating notes. As department head, he had attended dozens of academic celebrations, but he seemed genuinely excited about this unique wedding location. "I've never performed a ceremony at sea," he admitted, adjusting his formal robes. "The symbolism is perfect for someone whose life's work centers on ocean conservation." Jake's photography team set up equipment to capture every angle of the ceremony. They had underwater cameras ready to document any marine life that might appear during our vows, and drone operators prepared to film aerial shots of the yacht against the sunset backdrop. Around 4 o'clock, my phone began buzzing with frantic calls from my parents. I let the first few go to voicemail, but when Dorothy called for the 6th time in 20 minutes, I finally answered. "Celia, thank goodness," she said, her voice strained with stress. "We need to talk immediately." "What's wrong, Mom?" "Everything is wrong. Madison's wedding is falling apart, and it's all because of your announcement this morning." I stepped away from the wedding preparations to have this conversation privately. How is my wedding announcement affecting Madison's ceremony? Half the extended family is talking about leaving early to attend your yacht wedding instead. Uncle Robert has been telling everyone about your research grant, and now people are questioning why we didn't invite you to Madison's wedding in the first place. The irony was delicious. Madison's attempt to exclude me had backfired spectacularly, creating exactly the kind of social drama she'd claimed to want to avoid. Furthermore, Dorothy continued, Trevor's family is asking uncomfortable questions about our family dynamics. His mother pulled me aside and wanted to know why Madison's sister wasn't in the wedding party. "What did you tell her?" I tried to explain about the size limitations, but she said their guest list had over 300 people, so space couldn't have been the real issue. Frank's voice came on the line. Apparently they were calling from speakerphone. "Celia, you need to cancel your wedding immediately and come support your sister. This whole situation is causing enormous embarrassment for our family." "I'm not canceling my wedding, Dad." "Then postpone it. Move it to next weekend or next month. Anything to stop this chaos. Why should I change my plans? Madison certainly wouldn't change hers for me." Dorothy's voice cracked with emotion. "Because you're destroying your sister's happiness out of spite. This is supposed to be the most important day of her life." "And what about the most important day of my life? Where was your concern for my happiness when you excluded me from family celebrations?" The question seemed to stun them into silence. Finally, Frank spoke again, his tone shifting to anger. "Fine. If you proceed with this selfish stunt, don't expect to be welcomed back into this family. You'll be choosing your pride over your relationships with all of us. I'm choosing my self-respect over your emotional manipulation." Emotional manipulation? Dorothy's voice rose to a near shriek. "We're trying to preserve family unity and you're tearing it apart." Family unity. I laughed bitterly. "You mean the unity where Madison gets whatever she wants while I'm expected to be grateful for scraps?" Before either parent could respond, I heard Madison's voice in the background, clearly hysterical about something new. Dorothy muffled the phone while she dealt with whatever crisis had just erupted. "Celia, are you still there?" Frank asked. "We need to discuss this situation rationally." "There's nothing rational about demanding I sacrifice my wedding day to protect Madison's ego." "This isn't about ego. This is about doing the right thing for family harmony." "The right thing would have been including me in the first place. The right thing would have been celebrating my achievements instead of hiding them. The right thing would have been treating both your daughters with equal love and respect." Dorothy came back on the line, her voice thick with tears. "Madison is having a complete breakdown. She's locked herself in the bridal suite and won't come out. The photographer is threatening to leave if she doesn't cooperate, and Trevor's mother is asking whether we should postpone the ceremony." Part of me felt guilty about Madison's distress, but a larger part recognized this as the inevitable consequence of her own toxic behavior. She had spent years sabotaging my relationships and dismissing my achievements. Now the truth was coming out in front of the very people she'd been trying to impress. "I'm sorry Madison is upset," I said honestly. "But her reaction to my success says more about her character than it does about mine." "Your success?" Frank's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You mean your pathetic attempt to upstage your sister's wedding?" The accusation revealed everything I needed to know about my parents' priorities. Even now, faced with evidence of my professional achievements, they were more concerned with Madison's social image than my actual accomplishments. "Goodbye, Dad. I have a wedding to attend." "Celia, wait." I hung up and turned off my phone. Whatever happened at Madison's wedding was no longer my concern. I had tried for years to earn my family's respect and support, only to be met with dismissal and rejection. Today marked the end of that chapter. Jake found me on the yacht's upper deck staring out at the harbor where other boats were preparing for evening sails. "Everything okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "My parents want me to cancel our wedding to avoid embarrassing Madison." "And what did you tell them?" "I told them I'm done sacrificing my happiness for people who don't value me." He kissed the top of my head gently. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. You deserve better than their treatment." At 5:30, guests began arriving for our ceremony. The contrast with my family's reaction couldn't have been more stark. Dr. Martinez from the University of Miami brought champagne to celebrate both my wedding and my grant achievement. Professor Thompson from Woods Hole flew in specifically for the ceremony, bringing greetings from colleagues around the world who had heard about my research breakthrough. Jake's family arrived with enthusiasm and warmth that felt foreign after years of my own family's conditional acceptance. His parents embraced me like a beloved daughter, and his sister Sarah presented me with pearl earrings that had belonged to Jake's grandmother. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," Jake's mother said, tears in her eyes. "We're so proud of what you've accomplished, and so grateful that Jake found someone who shares his passion for protecting our oceans." Around 6 o'clock, I was surprised to see David and Robert approaching the yacht's gangway, both dressed in their formal wedding attire, but carrying overnight bags. "We hope you don't mind party crashers," David called out as they boarded. "But we decided family loyalty should go both ways." "You left Madison's wedding?" I asked, amazed by their gesture. Robert nodded firmly. "We stayed through the ceremony, which was beautiful, by the way. Madison managed to pull herself together long enough to say her vows. But when the reception started and she began bad-mouthing you to anyone who would listen, we decided we'd had enough. What was she saying? That you were jealous and attention-seeking, that your grant was probably exaggerated, and that Jake was a nobody who would never amount to anything significant. David's expression showed his disgust with Madison's behavior. Trevor's family looked horrified. Several other family members left early, too, Robert added. Aunt Helen said she was ashamed of how Dorothy and Frank have been treating you, and Cousin Patricia wanted to come but felt obligated to stay since she's in the wedding party. Their presence meant more to me than I could express. After years of feeling like the family outcast, having David and Robert choose my celebration over Madison's validation felt like a form of redemption. At 6:30, the yacht's captain announced that we were ready to depart. As we pulled away from the marina, I felt a profound sense of liberation. Behind us lay years of family dysfunction and conditional love. Ahead stretched the open ocean and a future built on mutual respect and genuine affection. The ceremony would take place at 7 o'clock as we sailed into the sunset, but first I needed to address the elephant in the room with my unexpected guests. David, Robert. I want you both to understand something, I said as we gathered on the main deck. By choosing to be here, you're probably burning bridges with my parents and Madison. David shrugged. Some bridges are worth burning when the people on the other side refuse to cross them. We should have stood up for you years ago, Robert added. Madison has been manipulating family relationships for too long, and your parents have enabled her behavior instead of stopping it. As the yacht moved through calm harbor waters toward the open ocean, I realized that losing my original family might have been necessary to find my real one. The people surrounding me now celebrated my achievements, supported my dreams, and treated me with the love and respect I deserved. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. In 30 minutes, I would marry the man who understood and shared my passion for protecting the oceans. The ceremony would be live-streamed to colleagues around the world, marking not just my wedding day, but my emergence as a leader in marine conservation. Madison could have her country club reception and her society connections. I had something far more valuable: authentic relationships built on mutual respect and shared purpose. As we sailed toward the sunset, I felt genuinely grateful that my family's rejection had forced me to discover what real love and support actually looked like. At exactly 7 o'clock, as the oceanic dream sailed through waters that glowed like liquid gold in the setting sun, I emerged onto the yacht's bow wearing my flowing silk wedding gown. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt water and adventure, while dolphins appeared alongside our vessel as if choreographed for this perfect moment. Dr. Harrison stood ready to officiate, his academic robes, replaced by elegant Navy attire appropriate for a waterfront ceremony. Jake waited at the improvised altar, his eyes reflecting the same wonder I felt at the magic of this moment. Behind him, the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges, pinks, and purples that no country club ballroom could match. Our intimate gathering of 50 guests represented the best of our professional and personal worlds. Marine biologists from 6 different universities had traveled to witness the ceremony, while Jake's photography colleagues documented every moment with the skill that had made their work internationally recognized. The National Geographic livestream went active as I walked down the yacht's deck toward Jake, my dress flowing like sea foam behind me. Within minutes, viewers from around the world were watching our ceremony, drawn by the story of a marine biologist celebrating both her wedding and her groundbreaking research grant. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Harrison began, his voice carrying clearly over the water. We gather today not just to celebrate the marriage of Celia and Jake, but to witness the union of two souls dedicated to protecting our planet's most precious resource, the ocean that surrounds us. As he spoke, a pod of dolphins surfaced nearby, their graceful movements creating ripples that caught the golden light. The underwater cameras captured their presence, adding a magical element that viewers would remember long after the ceremony ended. Celia and Jake represent the next generation of ocean conservationists, Dr. Harrison continued. Their work documenting and protecting marine ecosystems will benefit generations of sea life and humans alike. When it came time for vows, Jake spoke first, his words simple but profound. Celia, you've taught me that true love means supporting someone's dreams, even when they take you to the deepest parts of the ocean. I promise to be your partner in every adventure, to celebrate your discoveries, and to help protect the world we both love. My own vows came from the heart. Jake, you've shown me that the most beautiful photographs capture not just images, but emotions and stories. I promise to be your companion in documenting the wonders of our oceans, to support your artistic vision, and to build a life as beautiful and enduring as the coral reefs we're working to save. As we exchanged rings, the yacht's position provided a stunning backdrop of open ocean stretching to the horizon. The live stream comments poured in from marine biology students, environmental activists, and complete strangers who were moved by the romance of our waterfront ceremony. Dr. Martinez from the University of Miami offered a special blessing that connected our marriage to our shared scientific mission. May your union be as deep as the ocean trenches you study, as enduring as the coral reefs you're working to restore, and as beautiful as the marine life you dedicate your careers to protecting. When Dr. Harrison finally pronounced us husband and wife, Jake's kiss tasted like salt air and possibility. The cheers from our guests mixed with the sound of waves against the yacht's hull, creating a symphony that no traditional wedding orchestra could match. As we turned to face our guests as a married couple, I noticed Jake's father wiping tears from his eyes. His mother clasped her hands together with joy, and several of the marine biologists applauded with the enthusiasm typically reserved for groundbreaking research presentations. The reception began immediately on the yacht's main deck, where the catering staff had prepared a feast featuring sustainable seafood and locally sourced ingredients. The menu reflected our commitment to environmental responsibility while providing an elegant dining experience that rivaled any country club offering. Dr. Thompson from Woods Hole offered the first toast, raising his champagne glass as the yacht continued sailing through calm waters. To Celia and Jake, whose dedication to ocean conservation inspires us all, may their marriage be as successful as their professional partnerships. The National Geographic team announced that the live stream had reached over 10,000 viewers in 37 countries, with comments pouring in from marine biology programs worldwide. Several international research institutions had posted congratulatory messages, and 3 major environmental organizations had shared the stream on their social media platforms. "This is unprecedented reach for a wedding ceremony," announced Patricia Chen, the National Geographic social media manager. The combination of the grant announcement, the yacht setting, and the marine wildlife appearances has created a perfect story that people around the world are connecting with. As the evening progressed, the yacht's position provided spectacular views of the coastline twinkling with lights. The photographer captured images of Jake and me dancing on the deck under a canopy of stars with bioluminescent plankton creating a magical glow in our wake. Around 9 o'clock, my phone, which I'd turned back on to share photos with distant friends, exploded with notifications. David and Robert, still aboard the yacht, showed me their phones displaying similar message floods. "Celia," David said, his expression mixing amusement with concern, You need to see this. He handed me his phone, which showed dozens of missed calls and text messages from my parents, Madison, Trevor, and various family members. The timestamps revealed that the calling had started around 8 o'clock and was intensifying by the minute. Robert's phone told the same story. They're calling everyone who came to your wedding, demanding to know how to contact you. The irony was perfect. My family, who had dismissed my achievements and excluded me from their celebration, were now desperately trying to reach me after seeing the global attention my wedding had received. Jake noticed the commotion and joined our conversation. What's going on? My family is apparently having second thoughts about their treatment of me, I explained, scrolling through increasingly frantic voicemails. The first message from Dorothy was relatively composed. Sweetheart, please call me. We've been watching your wedding online and it's absolutely beautiful. We need to talk. By the fifth message, her tone had shifted to barely controlled panic. Celia, people are calling us asking about your research and why we didn't mention your achievements during Madison's reception. Please call back immediately. Frank's messages revealed the scope of their social embarrassment. Your wedding is all over the internet. People from the country club are asking why we didn't know about your grant or your engagement. This is becoming very awkward for our family. Madison's messages progressed from anger to desperation. How dare you live stream your wedding when you knew it would overshadow mine? People are leaving my reception to watch your ceremony. Trevor's family thinks we're terrible people. Please call me back. But it was Trevor's single text message that revealed the full impact of the evening's events. Celia, I owe you a profound apology. After witnessing tonight's events and learning more about your achievements, I'm ashamed of how my fiancé and her family have treated you. You deserve much better. Jake read the messages over my shoulder, his expression growing more serious as the extent of my family's panic became clear. They're realizing what they've lost, he observed quietly. They're realizing what other people think they've lost, I corrected. If this wedding hadn't gained public attention, they'd still be perfectly content with their treatment of me. Dr. Harrison approached our small group, his face glowing with satisfaction. Celia, I've received calls from colleagues around the world congratulating the university on your achievements and your beautiful wedding. This evening has brought tremendous positive attention to our marine biology program. The contrast couldn't have been starker. While my chosen family celebrated my success and shared in my happiness, my birth family was panicking about the social consequences of their own behavior. As the yacht returned toward the harbor around 10 o'clock, the festivities continued with dancing, storytelling, and toasts that celebrated both my marriage and my research breakthrough. The atmosphere was warm, supportive, and genuinely joyful, everything a wedding reception should be. Meanwhile, my phone continued buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from people who had spent years taking me for granted. The validation I'd sought from them for decades was finally being offered, but only because strangers around the world were celebrating what my own family had dismissed. Jake and I stood at the yacht's railing as we approached the marina, watching the lights of shore grow brighter. Any regrets? He asked softly. I thought about the question seriously. My sister's wedding day was probably ruined. My parents were facing social embarrassment and family relationships were likely damaged beyond repair. None, I said honestly. Today showed me who really belongs in my life. As we docked at Harbor Point, marina guests began gathering their belongings and sharing final congratulations. The marine biologists exchanged contact information for future collaborations. Jake's photography colleagues discussed potential projects, and David and Robert made plans to visit us during our honeymoon research expedition to the Galapagos Islands. The last hour of our reception had generated over 15,000 live stream viewers, 3,000 social media shares, and messages from environmental organizations worldwide. What had started as a response to family rejection had become an unexpected platform for ocean conservation awareness. My phone showed 87 missed calls from family members, but I felt no urgency to return them. The people who truly mattered had been present for my special day, celebrating with genuine enthusiasm rather than obligated attendance. As Jake and I prepared to leave for our wedding suite at the Harbor Hotel, I realized that Madison's cruelty had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to discover what unconditional love and support actually felt like. Tomorrow would bring conversations with my birth family, but tonight belonged to the family I had chosen. The people who celebrated my achievements, supported my dreams, and treated me with the respect I deserved. Sunday morning dawned clear and peaceful in our honeymoon suite, overlooking Harbor Point Marina. Jake and I woke to the sound of seagulls and gentle waves still glowing from the magic of our wedding celebration. But the tranquility was immediately interrupted by my phone, which had been buzzing constantly since 6 in the morning. The missed call count had reached 103 overnight. Text messages, voicemails, and social media notifications created an avalanche of communication from my family, extended relatives, and even people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Should we listen to them?" Jake asked, bringing me coffee on the suite's private balcony. "I suppose we should find out what's happened," I admitted, though part of me preferred to remain in our peaceful bubble. The first voicemail from Dorothy, left at 6:15, set the tone. "Celia, sweetheart, please call me immediately. There's been a development with Madison's wedding that you need to know about." Her voice sounded strained and exhausted, completely different from her usual composed demeanor. Frank's message, recorded 20 minutes later, was more direct. "Your sister's marriage may not survive the weekend. Please call back as soon as possible." But it was Madison's own voice, broken and defeated, that revealed the full scope of what had transpired. "Celia, I know you have no reason to help me, but I'm begging you to call back. Everything has fallen apart, and I don't know what to do." Jake and I exchanged glances. Whatever had happened, it was serious enough to shatter Madison's characteristic confidence. I called Dorothy first, and she answered before the first ring completed. "Thank goodness," she said, her relief palpable. "Celia, we need you to come home immediately." "What's wrong, Mom?" "Everything. Absolutely everything is wrong." Her voice cracked with emotion. "Trevor's family is appalled by our behavior. They spent the evening researching your achievements online and asking questions about why we excluded you from the wedding." I waited for her to continue, sensing there was much more to the story. Madison's reception was a disaster. Half the guests left early to try to watch your wedding ceremony, and the ones who stayed were talking about your research grant instead of celebrating Madison's marriage. The irony was almost too perfect to believe. Madison's attempt to exclude me had resulted in my achievements becoming the main topic of conversation at her own reception. Furthermore, Dorothy continued, "Someone posted videos comparing your yacht ceremony to Madison's country club reception, and the contrast is unflattering." "What do you mean?" "Your wedding looks romantic, meaningful, and authentic. Madison's looks pretentious and hollow by comparison. The videos have been shared thousands of times with comments praising your genuine celebration over her expensive production." Frank's voice came on the line. They were clearly both listening. "Celia, we've received dozens of calls from people asking why we didn't tell them about your grant or invite them to your wedding instead." "But the worst part," Dorothy said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "is what happened with Trevor's family." She explained that Trevor's parents, prestigious members of Boston society, had been horrified to discover that their new daughter-in-law had excluded her own sister from the wedding celebration. When they learned about my research achievements, their disapproval deepened into genuine dismay. Mrs. Worthington told me directly that excluding accomplished family members from celebrations is considered deeply inappropriate in their social circles, Dorothy said. She couldn't understand how we had failed to mention your success during any of the wedding festivities. The conversation that followed revealed the extent of the social catastrophe my family was facing. Trevor's grandmother, the family matriarch who had given Madison the emerald necklace, had apparently been so disturbed by the story that she'd asked for the jewelry back, stating that it shouldn't be worn by someone who treated family members cruelly. Madison is devastated, Frank explained. She's locked herself in their hotel suite and won't speak to anyone, including Trevor. What does Trevor say about all this? He's questioning everything, Dorothy admitted. He told his parents that he didn't know about Madison's treatment of you, and that if he had known, he would have insisted on different arrangements. The revelation that Trevor was reconsidering his marriage based on Madison's character flaws felt like cosmic justice. She had spent months obsessing over impressing his family, only to alienate them completely through her own cruelty. "There's more," Frank said reluctantly. "The country club incident." "What incident?" Dorothy's voice became even smaller. Madison had what can only be described as a complete breakdown during the reception. She started screaming about how your wedding was ruining her special day, and she said terrible things about you and Jake in front of everyone. The details that followed were shocking, even by Madison's standards. Apparently, she had stood up during the toasts and delivered a bitter speech about family loyalty and attention-seeking behavior, making it clear to everyone present that she had deliberately excluded me from her wedding. The room went completely silent, Frank explained. Several people walked out during her speech, and Trevor's parents looked absolutely mortified. Trevor tried to calm her down, but she turned on him, too, accusing him of caring more about his family's opinion than supporting his new wife. The wedding reception had apparently ended in chaos, with Madison storming out and Trevor remaining behind to apologize to his family and the remaining guests. Several attendees had posted about the drama on social media, creating even more negative attention. "Celia," Dorothy said, her voice thick with tears, "we've made terrible mistakes. We see that now. Your achievements, your character, your beautiful wedding. We've been blind to everything that makes you special. We let Madison's insecurities and social ambitions cloud our judgment," Frank added. "We should have celebrated your success instead of hiding it. We should have insisted you be included in family celebrations instead of enabling Madison's exclusions." The apologies continued for several more minutes, but I found myself feeling emotionally detached from their distress. These were the same people who just 24 hours earlier had threatened to disown me for getting married on the same day as Madison. "What exactly are you asking from me?" I finally said. "We want to fix this," Dorothy said desperately. "We want to rebuild our relationship with you and Jake. We want to celebrate your achievements the way we should have from the beginning." "And what about Madison?" The pause that followed spoke volumes. "Madison needs to apologize to you herself," Frank said carefully. "But she's going to have to recognize the damage her behavior has caused before that can happen." After hanging up with my parents, I called Madison directly. She answered immediately, her voice barely recognizable through tears and exhaustion. "Celia, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry for everything." The apology that followed was unlike anything I'd ever heard from Madison. For the first time in our lives, she acknowledged the systematic way she'd undermined my relationships, dismissed my achievements, and manipulated family dynamics to maintain her position as the favored daughter. "I was jealous," she admitted through sobs. "I was terrified that if people knew how brilliant and accomplished you are, they'd realize I'm just ordinary. I've spent years trying to diminish you to make myself look better." "Madison, why are you telling me this now?" "Because I've lost everything that mattered to me, and I finally understand that it's my own fault. Her voice broke completely. "Trevor is talking about an annulment. His family wants nothing to do with me. Even our friends are posting about what a terrible person I am." The conversation continued for over an hour with Madison detailing the consequences of her behavior. The social media backlash had been swift and merciless, with people who knew both of us sharing stories about Madison's treatment of me over the years. "Trevor's mother said something that made me realize how wrong I've been," Madison confessed. "She said that in truly sophisticated circles, people are judged by how they treat those closest to them, especially family members. She said, excluding you from my wedding revealed a fundamental flaw in my character." "What do you want from me, Madison?" "I want to earn your forgiveness even though I know I don't deserve it. I want to learn how to be a better person, a better sister. I want to help repair the damage I've done to our family." The sincerity in her voice was unprecedented, but years of manipulation had made me cautious about accepting Madison's transformations at face value. "That will take time," I said honestly, "and it will require consistent changes in behavior, not just words." "I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Over the following weeks, the aftermath of our wedding weekend continued to unfold. The National Geographic feature about my research grant, An Ocean Wedding, generated thousands of positive responses from environmental organizations worldwide. 3 universities offered me position opportunities, and 2 documentary filmmakers expressed interest in following my coral restoration work. Madison and Trevor attended marriage counseling, where Madison confronted the insecurities and competitive behaviors that had poisoned our relationship for decades. Trevor's family eventually agreed to give their marriage another chance, but only after Madison wrote formal apologies to me and made public commitments to supporting environmental causes. My parents began the slow process of rebuilding trust by attending my research presentations, visiting my laboratory, and making genuine efforts to understand my work. They established a scholarship fund for marine biology students and asked me to help select recipients. Most importantly, Jake and I began our honeymoon research expedition to the Galapagos Islands, where we documented coral restoration efforts that would become the foundation of our collaborative career. The work was challenging, meaningful, and supported by people who valued our contributions to science and conservation. 6 months later, Madison called to share news that she and Trevor were expecting their first child. "I want my daughter to grow up knowing her Aunt Celia," she said. "I want her to see what it looks like to pursue your passions with courage and integrity." The conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. Madison had begun the genuine work of change, and while trust would take years to rebuild, I could finally see hope for a healthier family dynamic. The coral restoration project exceeded all expectations, with preliminary results showing remarkable success in rebuilding damaged reef ecosystems. Jake's photography documentation of our work appeared in major publications worldwide, and our collaboration became a model for combining scientific research with environmental advocacy. Looking back on that transformative weekend, I realized that Madison's cruelty had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to discover my own worth, independent of family approval. By choosing my self-respect over their emotional manipulation, I had found authentic love, meaningful work, and a community of people who celebrated rather than diminished my achievements. The lesson was clear and profound. True success comes from staying authentic to your passions and surrounding yourself with people who recognize your value. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your light. And sometimes the people who reject you are actually doing you a favor by showing you where you don't belong so you can find where you do. My family had laughed when Madison banned me from her wedding, calling me just a marine geek. But when my yacht wedding streamed worldwide and they flooded me with 100 calls, they discovered something important. The person they had dismissed as embarrassing was actually someone the world found inspiring. That realization changed everything for all of us. The ocean had taught me that the deepest treasures are found not on the surface where everyone can see them, but in the profound depths where only the most dedicated explorers dare to venture. My marriage, my career, and my relationships now reflected that same depth, built on substance rather than appearance, authenticity rather than approval, and love rather than obligation. And that made all the difference. What do you think makes a family celebration truly meaningful? The expense and social status, or the genuine love and support of the people present? Have you ever had to choose between fitting in and staying true to yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, and I hope this story reminds you that your authentic self is always worth celebrating, even when others fail to recognize your value. Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about finding courage in difficult family situations, and share this with anyone who needs a reminder that they deserve genuine love and respect. May you always have the courage to choose relationships that celebrate rather than diminish your light.